Welcome to episode 2 of Pastor's Corner. If you are joining us for the first time, I am Pastor Kelly Milne from the Bridgewater New Jerusalem Church. And with me, I have Reverend Dr. Donna Keene from the Elmwood New Church in East Bridgewater. And we have decided to put together a show to talk about, a number of things with a little pastoral twist. And we are currently talking about grief and what kinds of things come along with that. This is the season for people who are experiencing grief to have a difficult time, whether it's a new grief or an old grief. And I know today that we decided we were going to talk about another one of the stages of grief. And this one can be a little difficult and definitely can pop up without any notice, like all of the stages. But we're talking about anger. And that's a big one, you know. I know I've experienced it with grief. And I will say that this year has been particularly hard for me. And I will get angry all of a sudden and just not think of what is going on. But yeah, it can hit any time. I know sometimes I'll be talking with someone who's experienced grief or going through it, and they get angry at God. And I think that might be one of the first persons or beings that we get angry at. What do you think?
It can be, definitely. Yeah. I also think that we get angry at the person who has gone, because death is the ultimate form of abandonment.
For sure.
And basically speaking, if it's a parent or a spouse or a child, a close relative, we can get very angry that they've left us. Yeah, because they didn't ask our permission, and we didn't give it. And as a result, we want them back, and they're not coming back, and we can get extremely angry at the person who has gone. And also, we can start getting angry at God. You know, how can God allow this to happen? This was a good person. Why doesn't he take somebody who's evil rather than a family member? And it's not even logical at times. It just is a part of anger. And most of the time what we really have to do is just accept that we're angry and not act out on it. Throwing a fit at God doesn't really accomplish anything. But to be angry and to know why we're angry, that we've been left and that we're alone and we feel that loneliness, and as a result, we get angry. And it's okay, especially if you've got somebody to talk to about it.
That's true. Very true. I worry about those who may not have anybody to talk to. You know, where does that anger go? I can only speak from my personal experience, but I know that when my mom passed, and that anger immediately was directed at God.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's because I have a very strong faith.
Right.
And then I think as time went on, I really tried not to be angry with my mom because it wasn't her fault.
Mm-hmm.
Or, she didn't choose to leave. But, just that shaking of my faith.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes we don't realize that is something that can happen.
Mm-hmm.
And
in this season especially, I think it's hard. If the anger is fresh, if something has happened in this past year, for instance, since last Christmas, and if this is going to be the first Christmas, that's very tough. When I deal with people who are dealing with grief, I usually try to explain to them that they're going to have an anniversary of every possible thing in the first year. You know, the first birthday, the first Halloween, the first Christmas, and it all comes flooding in, unannounced, sometimes without us even knowing it. And all of a sudden we're angry that this is a Christmas without somebody we love. So we just have to know that that's normal. That's okay. And the promise is that the next year it's not so intense. It can get a little bit better. It never goes away, but it can get a little bit better. I had a friend whose father died Christmas morning. And for the last part of her life, she could not enjoy or celebrate Christmas without having to mourn her father.
Mm-hmm.
And she got upset. She got angry about that. You know, why couldn't he have done this, you know, on my birthday or something? Why did it have to be Christmas? So I think it depends on when it happens, why it happens, but anger's normal, really.
So we're telling everybody that they're actually normal.
Yes, we are, because grief is normal. And it just
Yep.
happens to everybody a little bit differently. But it's a very normal process, and we all go through it.
We do. At some point in our life, we will all go through it.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say how we choose to handle it, but sometimes those emotions just, we don't have a choice.
Yeah,
We don't always have a choice as to how we're going to handle that.
yeah.
You know, we can have some tools ready.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yes.
know, if I'm angry and I'm not understanding why I'm angry, well, throw a sticky up on the fridge.
Yeah.
Angry, grief, you know, just little reminders in our head
Mm-hmm.
to just get through the day, and this is
Yeah.
actually normal.
Yeah.
You know,
And sometimes when I talk with some of my clients or some of my parishioners, and they're being very angry, I'll say, you know, there is one thing you should do. If you've never owned one, you have to go buy a Nerf bat. And if you have a lally column in your basement, or you have the side of your garage, you go out with that Nerf bat and just wail. And it's not going to hurt anything. It's not, even if the Nerf bat breaks, who cares? But it does transfer some of that emotional intensity through your muscles and out into the world. And sometimes people come back and say, you know, it felt so good to hit something. I said, well, yeah, if you've got a Nerf bat, that's great. Of course, if you've got a down comforter and you hang it on a line and you wail on that, it's good for the comforter too.
it's true. Get a little cleaning done at the same time. You know, and I think people tend not to talk about grief, or, anger, whatever is going on, that shock that we touched on last time. But I think we, and I know, we physically take on that anger. We physically are affected by all of these emotions, and that's when it has to get out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there is a point where we just have to get the anger out, and we have to do something.
Yep.
You know, if you're not hit the comforter and try and clean and get rid of anger at the same time, you know, there's, like you said, talk to a friend.
Yeah.
You know, go out, be outside as a.
Do some power walking,
Mhm.
or go to the gym and exhaust your body. Right. I do believe that our emotions are so connected with all of the big, large muscles in our body. And if we can work those muscles to a point where we can be relaxed enough to fall asleep or to get some kind of relief from that, it works for anger as well.
It does. It does. And music
Mm-hmm.
is another tool to use. I know my playlist, if I look back at my music selections, you know, as I'm riding in the car or whatnot, surrounding the time of a death or a loss, yeah, that's you know, I'm going to date myself, but that's when the 80s heavy metal girl comes out, and you know, those types of songs get that out, you know, and then the playlist slowly moves into things that are a little more calm and
Mhm.
maybe even some classical music. So,
Yeah.
Music, use that.
Yeah.
Use that for sure.
And I've tried to help people to learn how to meditate. It's very difficult to meditate when you're angry. Although you can meditate on an angry mantra and incorporate that into your meditation. Meditation is supposed to make you relaxed and feel more calm, but there is such a thing as power walking. And you can meditate while you're power walking. If you say your angry mantra while you're moving your body, it can connect that in energy with that physical motion, and it becomes almost soothing to go through that. It's definitely possible to recognize the anger, to accept that we're angry, and then to function in a way that's not detrimental to our health.
Or others' health.
True.
That's true. So I've heard in conversations, family members expect somebody to be over their anger. Well, why have you been so angry for so long? This happened 6 months ago and you shouldn't be angry anymore. But how do we handle that? We know why we're angry, and we're working on it. But I would say to family members, just give them a little more time, a little more.
There's nobody keeping a stopwatch.
No, there shouldn't be.
There's always going to be somebody who holds on to an emotion because they're using it, they're still dealing with it longer than somebody else. I mean, some people are angry for years. I wouldn't want to be that person because I think it's really difficult to be that person. But if they're holding on to it, then they are holding on to it for a reason. And if you can support them and say, gee, I'm sorry you're still angry. I'm sure that must be very painful. Find something positive to say to them. Sometimes that'll help them recognize that it's okay to be angry.
Right. I know that, however, it has worked out that we have chosen to start this program during the fall, during this time when, especially those of us in the Northeast, we kind of have this darkness that happens at 4:30 in the afternoon. And that also plays into the next segment that we'll be talking about. But I think that when we are stuck, we're stuck in that darkness, not only physical darkness during this time of the year, but, just emotionally. And the anger is that emotion that's prevalent. I know as a pastor, we can always pray for family and friends, but what else would you suggest?
Well, I think this time of the year with Christmas, I think we're going to take a short break, though, and we'll come back to that.
I think that sounds perfect.
Okay.
Got some motor running, head out on the highway, looking for adventure, and whatever comes our way. Yeah, darling, go make it happen. Take the world in a loving embrace.
This phone's taken.
Exploded to space.
Son, will this help you?
Nature's child. We were born to be wild. We can climb so high.
Hey, thanks.
I never wanna die.
Hey, I appreciate it.
Born
Gratitude.
to be wild.
Pass it on.
A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
Jessica, we need to leave right now.
I need to get something. Dance recitals are so boring.
There's a me no one knows. Wait until they set
So,
free.
what's the empty suitcase for?
The grand prize trophy.
Duh.
Confidence. Pass it on.
I was born to be somebody.
And welcome back. We are back from our break, and we were talking about grief and anger, and we're going to move into something a little bit different. We're going to talk a little bit about depression. And I want to segue this with a sort of visual, but it's not visual, you just get me. So I saw on social media someone was trying to describe grief to another person. So when grief happens, let's say it's about this big. Okay, we've got all this grief, and our life is, filled with that grief. And as we move on, the grief stays about the same, but our life, things that fill our life get bigger and bigger. So it seems that the grief is getting smaller, but it's still there. And it's still that same size, but we can deal with it a little bit better. So I want to bring that into the topic of depression. And there's lots of descriptions and definitions of depression. And do you want to hit on a couple of maybe a clinical depression to a grief depression, and we can go from there?
Yeah, I do think that people who are going through grief can sometimes confuse sadness with depression, because sadness can be very deep, it can be incredibly painful, and it may not really be depression, because a clinical depression is not hardwired, but it's something in the brain that can be medicated. And somebody who's in a very deep depression can get relief from that kind of medication.
Right.
Situational depression can be equally painful, but it's not clinical. And situational depression you can work through by talking to your minister or your therapist or a loved one and just riding the waves as they come along. There are parts of depression in grief, though, that I think we need to recognize, we need to acknowledge, and we need to be able to say, I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't have any interest in food or talking with anybody else. I just don't want to do anything. And that's pretty normal. My mother, when my dad died, stayed in bed for a week. She did not want to eat. She did not want to see anybody. She didn't want to talk to us. And a week later, she said to herself, he's gone and I'm going to have to live. And she got up. So everybody deals with it differently. I would have said she was depressed, but not clinically. She was grieving tremendously. They had been married for over 50 years and never apart. And when he went, she didn't know what to do. She was totally alone, even though she had all of the family, all of her friends, all of her church. She was alone. And that's the other thing. I think that as ministers, we're taught after the funeral, people go back to their regular lives. It's up to us to go and recognize that a week or two later, we have to go show up because they're feeling abandoned by everybody. And that's part of grieving too, is to feel that depression, feel the sadness, and then have somebody come and say, let's go out for a walk, just to get you out of the house.
Absolutely. I distinctly remember a high school friend of mine just stopping by the house one day. I was in my in the corner of our sectional where I would wrap up with my blankets, and she came over, and lots of people came over, but I will never forget that she just popped in, and it was about that 2-3 weeks later, you know, and that just stuck in my mind, you know, that I know that she had been through that. So looking back, hindsight's 20/20 all the time, but you know, that really meant something. That meant a lot to me, and I will forever hold on to that. But yes, life does go on.
Yep.
But when you're in grief and grieving, it doesn't seem that way.
And the sadness is,
Yeah.
it can come in waves, and it comes when you least expect it. You can be laughing at a funny show on television and find yourself crying. Or you can be sitting on the edge of your bed, putting your shoes on, and start sobbing and not know why. But that's that little thing of grief that's just sitting there in the pit of your gut that's saying, hey, I'm still here, you know, and you got to deal with me. And especially at this time of the year, we keep coming back to this Christmas season. It is so tough for some people. You know, the Hallmark cards where everybody's happy, and, you know, the guy who did the Thanksgiving dinner with the turkey and all of the friends and family are sitting around. Life isn't like that for an awful lot of people at this time of year. You know, people who've had horrible childhoods, people who've had losses, people who have not got any place, and not to even mention the people who are homeless, and the people who don't have enough food or enough money to go buy presents. That's tough, and that's depressing for a lot of people. And so I give a lot of people thanks for those people who work in shelters, for those people who work with the homeless, those people who make Christmas, Toys for Tots, all of the people who are working stupendously to try to make the season a little bit better for the people who have less than we do, because we are blessed.
We are. We're very lucky. And I was just, as you're explaining the cards with the family and everyone's happy and joyful and, oh, I haven't seen you in forever. Those family units may not be as cohesive as you think. You know, sometimes getting together with family can be more stressful, you know, and when you're in families, things that happened even before you were born, those are still, little underminings are still there, you know, so I don't know. Sometimes I think it's just a fake it till you make it.
Sometimes,
you know,
yep.
Sometimes you just have to do what you need to do and get through it, and then look back and say, hey, I did that.
Yeah.
You know, I was totally depressed, and I was so sad, and I didn't think I could do it. And a lot of times I find, or have found, that the day that I'm dreading, a birthday, Christmas, Easter, whatever, is not as bad as the days leading up to it.
Yeah.
And I know that I have shared that with many of my friends who have experienced loss, but you know, it's just like raising kids. Every stage is different.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and every stage of grief is different. And you will change as you're going through that. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, is there anything else you
Well,
would like to hit on?
I was just going to say, though, that I'm single, and I learned a long time ago that I don't always get a present at Christmas that I want, you know. And as I've gotten into my more mature years, people have no idea of what to get me. So I get gift cards.
Oh.
And sometimes they're things that I don't go to. And so I don't know what to do with them. I always say thank you.
Of course.
But what I have discovered over the years is I buy myself a Christmas present that I want. I treat myself at Christmas. I give myself a budget and I buy something for myself so that if I am feeling sad or depressed or lonely, even in a crowd, I know that I have something waiting for me at home that I'm going to open up as if I didn't know what it was, but I bought it.
Exactly.
And I also get presents for my animals and get joy when they start playing. So there are things that people who live alone can do around this season that make it and I've also learned how to bake, which is very funny because I do not cook. But I have now made 2 different breads and they've been very successful. And so now I have something to bring to a family gathering at Christmas that nobody else has brought. And they seem to like it. And that gives me pleasure. It keeps me part of the group. So I just think there are different ways that we can look at the season, if it's sad or lonely or depressing, and we can do something different for ourselves. I know somebody who definitely goes away from the snow, goes to the Caribbean, and goes parasailing every Christmas. And that's her way of treating herself to a different experience. Not bad.
Not bad. Nothing wrong with it either.
No.
You know, nothing wrong with it at all. And you said you buy things for your cats. My cats tend to buy things for me. I don't know if they just got the hint at one point that, you know, again, the things that you know you like, but,
Yeah.
you know, there's nothing wrong with treating yourself with kindness during this time of year for sure. You know, and especially if you're feeling alone and you're feeling sad, reach out. You know, everyone does have a friend. You know, reach out to a pastor, a minister, anyone. You know, social media is great for keeping people connected. And it's okay to reach out, however way you see fit. You know?
Yep.
And I think that will not only help with being depressed or sad. Maybe we need to move that word from depression to sadness in this explanation of grief.
Right.
Yeah. But believe it or not, we have come to the end of our program today. And I think that this is important information for everyone, whether you have a faith or not. This is still information that is important and relevant, especially to this time
And
of
the
year.
light is coming. The light is coming.
The light is coming, yes. So I will say thank you for joining us today, and we'll be back again soon.
And Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.